Hello there, and welcome to another episode of Stories Across Cultures.
Recently, we have been asked by some family members and friends to see if we are worried about the second wave of coronavirus actually coming to China. But in general, we're not particularly worried about it, I think, because there are actually a lot of measures has been taken around where we stay, where we live, and also like during your travel, there are actually a lot of different measures were taken. So to be honest, I'm not particularly worried about like second wave. I think the general situation is really getting better, and I feel quite safe to go back to my normal life, like go to restaurant, go to work. I even did a business travel recently, and we did like travel for vacation recently as well. So I feel everything is really like going back to a bit like normal life, maybe a new normal you can call it, but like it's you can enjoy life right now.
Today we wanted to show you a bit about our life in Beijing after the coronavirus. So on Friday night we went out for a meal after work. We really enjoyed our time. The reason we enjoyed it was because it was pretty much exactly the same as it would be before the coronavirus, right? There was no real difference. So you know, we went inside the small community where the restaurant was. We had to show like some proof that we didn't have the coronavirus, a little green code. We'll talk about a bit more later in the video. And then we had to wear a mask when we went inside the restaurant. Apart from this, there was actually no difference, right, from normal life. And we thought that was quite interesting because it really showed us that actually, even though the coronavirus is still out there, it really didn't affect our lives at all, really, in Beijing when we went out for this meal. And in general, it doesn't really affect any of our daily life, actually, anymore. Right? Apart from these small preventative measures you have to take, you know, to ensure that everyone's protected inside the society.
For example, you're going to work every day, and for how long? Like several months now.
Yeah, and nothing's ever happened, right?
Yeah.
They check our temperature when we go in the building, and they just we have to have a QR code to get inside. We have to just swipe.
Yeah.
That's it. There's no other real restrictions at all. Yeah, very calm and average life, I'd say. No special things at all.
So there are a few points we want to address today, and just to share with you how the life experience is actually right now in China, especially in Beijing, where we live.
Yep. And while we're showing you that, we're going to show some footage, right, from that sort of alleyway where the restaurant was based, and just give you an insight into how kind of life has really returned back to normal inside China. One of the main points, right, which helps secure like a normal life inside China, even though the coronavirus is still out there, is the health codes we have. Right? People call it like the Luma.
Like, green code.
Green code, right. And the reason why they call it that is because it's green. And that's kind of the story behind it, right? So everyone has them, and everyone has it on their phone. To get it right, you have to put in some information about yourself, very sort of basic information. You know, you've got to put in obviously your name. You've got to put in, like your passport number, or for Chinese, the ID number, exactly. And then you've got to put in like your travel history as well. And that's basically it, really. And what it does then is kind of certifies that, okay, this person has not traveled to a sort of high danger area. They haven't done anything kind of risky, so that kind of then can certify this person is in fact a person worthy of this green code. Pretty much everyone has them, but if they had, for example, travelled to a dangerous area, for example Wuhan, they would come up with red, and they'd have to quarantine for 14 days. So none of us have had red, we've always been green. But it's a really good measure actually, and really convenient, right? We can just use it wherever we go. We go inside that alleyway near the restaurant, we just show our code and we get inside.
It's like your kind of new ID card to show like free from coronavirus. Like I have never been to like high risk area. Most of the apps we're using, I guess a lot of you have heard that we have a different trace tracking method apps that we're using, but most of the apps we're using are actually based on our self-claim, right? Like we will fill in like what kind of area we have been to, do we have any symptoms, for example like coughing or fever. So obviously very much based on like social trust, like people should claim themselves like according to the truth, but so far I think it's working, so it's actually showing that people are really paying attention to it, and they're really making effort to bring the result. And but obviously if you don't really claim according to the truth, if you were found out, you will probably get
There is punishment involved.
punishment. Yeah.
And it's interesting you mentioned that about obviously the way people put in their information. Obviously it is a form of, you could call it surveillance, right? People are being watched, but it's for the greater good. Obviously it's for the betterment of society to ensure there isn't a second wave and everyone's kept safe from the coronavirus. So it's interesting to kind of contrast obviously. Other countries, especially in the West, obviously there's a bit more concerns about this sort of privacy. So they're more wary of giving over their information. And so we can't have the same apps over there. So in this regard, obviously, it's actually quite beneficial for China, right? Because now if you want to go to work, I can just show my green code. You want to go to a restaurant, show my green code. You want to get a train, you just show your green code. And it's very straightforward, very smooth, yeah. And it's really, really, really good actually. So that's one method that China is using to ensure they don't have a second wave. So a second method was about obviously people coming into the country from abroad who could of course have the virus potentially, right?
Yeah, because so we were talking about second wave. When we talk about it right now in China, the domestic cases are more or less like disappeared. Obviously the government has concerns over the imported cases since a long time ago. So the measures are quite strict. That could be like they have like created a circle that's it's like a loop, right? It's like a fully closed loop. So once you are taking flights from other countries, after you're arriving, you'll get tested immediately, and then you will be escorted to a special bus just for this group of people, like the people arriving at the same flight, and they will follow the bus to the hotel they're going to stay in. They have to do like centralized quarantine, so you cannot do it at your home or like your friend's home, but you have to do it in a designated hotel. Then you need to stay there for 14 days, and then you need to test it like several times before you can be released.
Yeah.
Yeah, it means no interaction with outside.
Yeah. This is a really great method. So we actually have quite a lot of insight into it because our location of our house is actually not too far from the airports and not too far from one of these hotels which is actually isolating people. So what the kind of story was, I think it was back in March, there was like a big wave of people coming back to China. Perhaps they had been abroad studying or they wanted to return to their work back in, obviously in mainland China. And there was a big surge on the airport. Obviously the government kind of realised, okay, we can't let this many people come in and go back to normal life because it could be potentially dangerous. They could be bringing the coronavirus back with them. They quickly thought of a plan to put all the people in the hotels. They worked with the hotels pretty efficiently to set these places up. One of those hotels is actually quite near where we live, right? We can see a normal person can't go inside. It's surrounded by some barriers. Some barriers, not high. I mean, you could get over them. It's just like a normal fence. But it's basically just telling people outside, don't come inside. And also at the doors, there's like some guards in just plain clothes, like wearing a suit. And if anyone was to approach, they would say, okay, best not come inside now because there's some people quarantining inside. And then obviously to get their food inside, they get their delivery sent to the hotel, and it's very convenient for them for the period they're inside. So it's a pretty good system, I think. Yeah,
I think it's working pretty well. Right now we also have a very significant decrease of the imported cases. So in general the cases overall is not that much. I think maybe 2, 3 once in a while.
Yeah, every now and then you hear that, there's a rumour of a case or something, but very few. Yeah,
but because they kept these people outside of the domestic environment, they are separated in the hotel. So in general we feel quite safe, like because we know that people we met is either being tested or quarantined or just in general safe.
Yeah. So that kind of leads on to another point, right, which obviously connected to the Luma, the green codes, and obviously being quarantined if you come back in the country, is that people are very willing to kind of go along with these kind of directives. Really, like people wearing a mask, it's really common. You go to a park or an office or everyone's going to be wearing the mask. And again, like during the quarantine, people really accept it and they're quite enthusiastic about doing it to ensure everyone else is protected, right? So people go along with these kind of measures, and that's really good for the society overall. You see in some places, obviously, people are not so kind of willing to go along with the kind of measures the government puts in place. So as you say, like it's a bit harder. Obviously in England, not everyone's going to be wearing a mask, and people might be breaking the quarantine rules, but in China, people they go along with these rules really.
Yeah, because for example, the measures were taken, like the measures we've been mentioned before. The measures we mentioned before, like these green codes or quarantine or like a lot of checking and testing. I know like a lot of people may think, oh, like it's kind of like lack of freedom or like maybe it violates some of your rights. But to be honest, like me, when I think of it, if it actually keep me safe,
willing to give over that
healthy
kind of thing, yeah.
and keep the society move forward to go back to normal faster, then I think why not? Like if I'm not going to do anything bad, then I think the whole thing is actually protecting me.
Yeah. Right, yeah, so people have that kind of mindset. So there's another point as well I think is actually quite interesting is about the volunteers who are willing to spend their time actually, maybe like manning a post to ensure that everyone's got their green card when they enter the community, or just like, sort of standing at a door somewhere else, or also doing some cleaning, that kind of stuff. A lot of people volunteer to do this, which is quite nice to see in China. So in our community we live, there's like a gate which cars usually come in and out of, and for a period of I think about 2 months, there was a group of volunteers who lived inside the community, but they gave up their time to stand at the gate all day. Obviously they did shifts, but there was someone there pretty much 24/7. They would check anyone coming inside. You had to have a little card to show that you lived there, so they would check the card, and they would also check your temperature, and they let you inside. And if you were from outside the community, perhaps you were visiting a friend or something, for a period of time you couldn't come in, and then after that you had to, once after the coronavirus was less serious, they then have to register, and obviously the volunteers would help the person register and then tell them the kind of rules inside the community. So having these volunteers was really helpful, and it could allow people to make sure that the community we lived in, the same as all the other communities throughout China, were kept free from the coronavirus. So volunteers are really, really good there.
I have actually been to a business travel recently. I need to travel from the north to the very south. So in travel, we also have a lot of measures. For example, you need to register first, obviously with the airline company, that where have you been to, how is your health condition, through the app. And when you arrived, you can see like all the staff in the airport are wearing like protective gears, and they will check your temperature. When you enter inside, they will check your health code, the green code were mentioned. When you actually, so that was when you enter the airport. And when you go on board of the flight, they will check again with your green code, your temperature, and you need to wear a mask the whole time, besides eating things and drinking, obviously. And then also like they have a limitation of how many people they can take. And then on the flight, we also check the temperature. So that was quite safe for me.
Right, so that's like our experiences inside Beijing, right, during sort of after the coronavirus, and it's now pretty much back to normal. So that's the experiences we had, and I think people in China are happy that the government's doing these measures to keep everything running as normal, and pretty satisfied with it, right?
Yeah, I feel quite relieved after all the time that we have been experienced.
Yeah. So please let us know if your experiences living under or after the coronavirus, what kind of measures you have to put up with, what kind of things you're doing, how your new normal is. So let us know in the comments. Send us a message so we can kind of see how you guys are dealing with it. And then if you like the video, click the like button, make sure you subscribe so you catch our future videos, and tune in for the next one.